it totals up to over 70,000 per year. That's just wasted time doing stuff maybe in a way that doesn't work.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Contractor Success Academy lesson. Today I'm really excited because in studio with us right here, we've got the man, Mr. Frank Bourque. Frank, thanks for being with us.
Mark, it's a pleasure.
Awesome having you. So for those of you that are in the landscape, hardscape industry, Frank needs no introduction. For those of you that have never heard of Frank Bourque before, well, he's a guy who, like I said, has been in the hardscape landscape industry for many, many years. He built companies, did some consulting after a while, sold some businesses, and today he's here to talk to us and share lessons on why certain KPIs within your business are super important. So Frank, what are we going to be learning from you today, my friend?
Well, what I'm bringing today, Mark, is really what has changed my life. It's changed my business, and it's changed other people's business and lives. I think it's the most useful information you can get as a business owner, or the most easiest way to change your business if you start tracking these things. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. 7 of the most important KPIs to track. And then from there, we'll be able to take it to the next level and maybe give a few pointers how to go about doing that with your team and which softwares are great to use.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it.
Great. So, Mark, as a business consultant, it's always interesting to see what comes your way because you have people who are willing to do the work. You have people who run a business and they kind of lose control because, I remember myself as a contractor being busy, right? Yeah. You're so overwhelmed. It's, it's go, full tilt for a few months a year. And then you're trying to keep up with, and if you're a business owner, but you're also the operator, then you're doing, you have many hats.
Yeah.
So the goal with this is, well, in my own business, when I grew the business, we had over 100 employees at one point. And then the economy crashed. So the only good thing about the economy crash is that it taught me to go back to the basics. It forced me to eliminate what wasn't working in my business and to keep what was working. And that's the only way I could survive. To bring a business from over 100 employees to less than 20.
Wow. And
to be able to be more profitable with 20 guys or less than I had at 100 guys. Really? It really took some, basically eliminating, but also bringing on some new stuff in the business. So today, that's exactly what I want to do. I'm just going to share some of the things that I discuss. When I'm doing coaching, I just try to make people realize that there's a few things, key things, that if you track and you measure, you can really change your business. And you can change your culture too. It's a business culture to run a business efficiently.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you agree, but if you're efficient as a business person, and you're going to attract the type of client who likes that, right? Who clients love having not only someone who does great work, but who is very efficient doing the work. So the goal with this is not only to be more efficient doing the work, but your guys are not just working for the dollar per hour anymore. They want to find the best way to do it because there's something in it for them, right? And so it's a whole switch. And for most businesses, contractor businesses out there, it doesn't work that way. It's, we charge a certain amount, the guys go out, and sometimes they do it in that amount of time, but sometimes it takes a lot more time. So this is why I love this quote. So time is what we want the most, but what we use the worst, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things where it's all about, we don't control time because there's only 24 hours in a day and you can't do much with it. You can't have more time, buy more time. You only have 24 hours a day, but you can manage it. The same goes for change. You can change your business. You might have to change your business because there's change coming your way, but what you can control is how you manage your time and change that comes your way. So, there's a lot of things you can do. I want to get into the KPIs of business. First things first, I just want to talk about technology too, because it goes hand in hand. Today, I'm going to talk to you about software that you can implement and how you go about doing that. The millennials, Generation Y, they're awesome at that. They love technology. And there's probably contractors out there asking themselves, like, they don't picture themselves using technology to track all these things. But that's why you got to find the superstar in your business that can help you do that.
Implement that. Yeah.
Implement that.
One thing, Frank, that I find really interesting, and you just touched on that, is the notion of taking a business with 100 employees doing a certain, revenue range, and kind of bringing that down to 20 employees and being more profitable. Yeah. So we talk to home improvement businesses all the time, whether you're a landscaper or not, is irrelevant. If you're struggling with your business, you're not where you're at revenue wise. Something can be done. And case in point, to kind of reduce 5x the number of employees, be more profitable. That's amazing. And to just hear that, this quote about managing time, that is where a lot of people fall short, because it very much is a level playing field. And at the end of the day, we all have the same number of hours in a day. And the only way to, buy more time is to run an effective, efficient, profitable business, right?
And when you said that, it really clicked, because when you go from, let's say, 100 employees, 5 times less, 20, what you're doing is eliminating a lot of things that you're not good at, you should not be doing. And when people say, I'm too busy, it means you probably have too many of those things that you don't need.
Yeah. That you're saying yes to a lot of things.
A lot of things. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So today, it really helps any business owner, contractor, to take a step back and start thinking about, in every of those departments that I'm going to present to you today, where could I get more efficient? How can I get better at doing these things or tracking these things, so that we don't have to keep doing the same mistakes or those same things that are not efficient for the business over and over and over again.
So Frank, these are things you've learned, you've implemented in your own business. So for those of you out there who haven't made these mistakes yet, don't make them. Frank has made them for you.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And
so let's get into it.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I want to do. So these are just numbers real quick before we get into the KPIs. Most business want to know, how can I grow, right away? Mm-hmm. Well, when I go into a business, take a look at the numbers right away, without even getting into the KPIs that much, I can start finding money that leaks out quite a bit. This is just an average company that I met up with, let's say with 3 employees per crew, couple crews, and you start calculating how much time it takes to load and unload a trailer, to forget tools, materials to have to go buy, extra long breaks, even just 5 minutes longer. It totals up to over $70,000 per year. That's just wasted time doing stuff, maybe in a way that doesn't work. So tracking those KPIs is going to help you to find out where the leaks are and where you're efficient. So that's very important. Another example of how I work with contractors with the KPIs is finding out what works, what doesn't work with their equipment. They use a lot of equipment. Mm-hmm. Some of them think they have to hire more guys, when we realize that, for example, this machine for this client here, we were trying to look at the numbers to see how much time it's taking him. And this machine, he could do 3 times more with just 1 employee of what he could do with 3 employees doing the same amount of work. So it's when you start doing all the numbers, that machine was only costing him $9.50 an hour if he could use it for 5 years, right? At 2.5 days per week. So you run those numbers, 35 grand seems expensive, but when you replace his 2 employees, it's starting to make sense. So all those numbers are important. So just 2 little examples. So today, the 7 KPIs that we want to track or start tracking a lot more is the project scheduling and updating. You want to make sure that, I always say that your proposal, the quote that you give the client, that's like your job plan, all right? But the project scheduling is your timeline. So you want to achieve that goal in this amount of time, and here's how we're going to do it.
Don't deviate from it, because if you do, now it's not good.
Exactly.
Okay.
And usually you can only deviate by so much, because your profit margins, let's face it, for the average contractor, it's 3% their profits. We're aiming for 10, which is really good. That's net profit.
Yeah.
But we want to do better than that, and we can by tracking these KPIs. So labor productivity and quality, very important. We're going to talk about productivity rates, problems. When you discover a problem on a construction site, if you don't take care of it right away, it can cost you a lot of money. So documenting it is very important. Also, change orders. Man, I can't say much enough about change orders. It's costing companies a lot of money in construction. So change orders are huge. Logging requests for information, so RFIs, responses, very important. Just for for keeping into your records. If you want to have to go back and check, what did we say for this? What did we agree on? There's easy ways to do that. Safety and inspections, saving time, getting permits approved. We'll get into that. And then close out details. There's nothing worse than closing out a job not the right way and then having to go back. So we'll get right into it. So project scheduling, what's important to keep in mind? Well, the point of a schedule is to deliver the project on time and have a timeline, right? And on budget, obviously. When it's properly prepared, a schedule, you're basically able to use it for planning, executing your work, monitoring and controlling not only the teams, but the work itself, and also communicating with your whole team. Because as you know, there's many subcontractors involved in one job at a time. There's nothing worse than having one delay the other one because not knowing that it's not done yet.
Yeah, that's costing you a lot more money, a lot faster. Yeah.
So 12 things that you need to track is definitely you need to have all the activities in one place. And apps such as software such as Co-Construct. I love it because it helps you keep track of all these things, the activities, the dates for every parts of the project, the type of work that goes in, the start dates, the finish dates. It's calendar based. You see everything on the right of that screen. You see all the activities when it has to start and finish. It's all there. The information.
It's almost like a Gantt chart where
exactly.
One thing cannot start before another. And
That's exactly it. And then mobily, you can basically with your mobile device, you can just have a really good visual, right? It's so easy to see where are we on the timeline. As you can see here, it's just basically if it's filled in blue, it means it's done, it's complete. So somebody can pick up any subcontractor can pick up their phone, take a look at where it's on the project. Yeah, that's complete. I can go. It's ready for me. It tells you a lot without having to do much. The only thing that's involved is for people to be using it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I guess the software is only as good as the people using the actual technology, right?
Yeah.
If anybody can determine, it's blue, it's done, great. But if people are not, once the job's completed, going manually entering that, then...
There's a few quick tips you can do with your team is, when I was talking about finding champions within your teams, it's finding people who are comfortable with technology, getting them to start using it,
right,
and getting them to use their managers to use it a little bit.
Okay.
Once a few key people are using it, and you're able to know what works and what doesn't work for you, then when you're ready to implement it, unveil the software, let's say to your whole company, you need to be ready to implement, to invest money, because you gotta provide some robust training right from the start, some heavy duty training so that everyone can understand how to use it. Because if they don't, they just won't use it.
Yeah, and I think when you're making such big changes, drastic changes across an organization, it's going to impact a lot of people, and some will be quick to want to adopt the technologies, others a little bit more reluctant, and I think training one, and then just incentives or positive reinforcement. Absolutely. Right? When you're able to show people, look at the impact this is having on our business. Now we're in a position where we can be a little bit more selective in terms of the types of jobs that we want to bring on, because we're more profitable as a business because everybody collectively is leveraging.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Some people will perceive it or might perceive it as micromanaging because they think you want to track everything to know how much time it takes them. Very good point.
Scared of Big Brother.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you're able to show them what's in it for them, and the key is, listen, we're trying to save dollars and figure out where we need to price better so that we can invest more in the business, better tools, maybe even more pay. And finally, we will know, because you know what? The information that you're going to get is is pretty amazing. And when we talk about productivity rates and all these things in a few minutes, I will. You find out who in the company really deserves the raise and who really deserves to the leadership positions, and who, because just the data comes through. It's forward. You see who's doing the work, who's bringing in the real money, and who's efficient. So, it's just good information to have overall. But like you said, incentives are huge for something like this. So project scheduling, it's to create the flow. It's really, that's the key word. It's flow. You're looking for everyone to come in at the right time or to go out when on time. And by having a schedule that works and you're keeping track of everything that's going, if you are let's say, home builder and you have a plumber that's done and you need a drywaller to come in, well, there's nothing worse than having the drywaller come in when the plumber's not done. And so having all this, it creates a flow. Everyone knows what's the right time, if it's the right time, who's delayed by what. So that's the main key. Labor productivity and quality. So when I was talking about productivity, it's really all about knowing how much time it takes you to do the work. So for landscape construction, it could be excavation, or it could be, for home builders, it could be framing a home. But just knowing how much time it takes you to do a specific task is huge. Not only for the salesperson selling, who knows if he's pricing right, or if he needs to raise the prices, but it's good to do just to get to know your crews if they're improving. So we do that on a regular basis. This is an example on the right of basically if you would be just using a simple sheet of paper every day, which is the simplest way to start. So when people tell me we're not using technology, no problem. Let's print this sheet and your guys can put their names on it, what they're doing, a specific type of labor description, and every break, before they go on break, they can just mark down what they did, what they accomplished, how many square feet did they install or excavate or whatnot. And then from there, at the end of the day, the foreman can kind of compile all the information and say, listen, as a crew, we're able to install so much material or do so much work. And then with this information, it also helps the foreman know, okay, well, on an average day with average temperatures and all these details, we're able to do so much work. And from there, he's able to predict how much he can do in a week, when he'll be done. It's a good motivator for crews.
Right. It's a benchmark, right?
It's a benchmark.
Something to tie productivity to, I guess.
Exactly. And there's nothing worse for a crew than having someone who tells them it should take you 2 days, but they know it's going to take 3, right?
Yeah, sure, boss.
Yeah, maybe when you were running and doing it, right? And I had that bad habit as a boss to think, well, if I was doing it, it would only take me a day, right? But you know what? You can't go with your own stats. You have to go with what's real. And what's real is you have a team, less experienced, more experienced people. You have to create an average, and you have to know, so productivity rates come in handy for that. Now, quality is important too. You have to track quality. So you should have the foreman inspect and have a kind of a checklist that says, yeah, we've checked for cracks, we've checked for defects or anything that could impact having to come back and pay out of your own pocket. So I know a lot of contractors who do great work, but if during the process they don't necessarily, maybe a big issue for them was that they weren't checking the product, so they could have the whole thing installed and then notice, man, we've just installed all that flooring, but there's this one thing right in the middle, this one plank should have been replaced. Now it's going to cost us a lot more money to go back and do it. So all these little things really pays off. And the foreman is he's going to be the one doing most of this work, but he needs the right tools, which sometimes just a sheet of paper. Here's an example of an Excel sheet. So that's like a step above the paper sheet of paper. But then we have another step above that, which is software. And software these days makes it so easy being on the cloud. Everyone can have access to the data live. And so it shows you the schedule, it gives you a really good visual, and it also provides just all the information you need. basically your checklist that you need. So nobody forgets any details. So, and the client can have access to that as well. So, I mean, maybe not the productivity part of it, but if you're keeping photos to show them, yeah, it's been installed, it's there, you see the quality, we've checked on all these things, we know there's no defects, there's no visual imperfections, everything seems good, they can approve it. It just facilitates the process.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's no reason not to
Yeah.
use technology like this. And Frank, when I'm listening to you talk about, like that tool you mentioned a while ago that was maybe $35,000 or software that maybe this is sold on a per license or per user basis, people oftentimes will look at the sticker price and say, oh, geez, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I think if we flip it around and say, what's the cost of not using this? You know what I mean? Like, what's the cost of information that's not accurate, of people not actually filling it out or whatever,
Most companies, and it's almost easy to guarantee that you can not only make up the money for what you pay for this investment, but I'm very comfortable in saying that you can 10 times the amount the first year if you track and you start implementing all these things
based on your data.
So because you're getting all this information, if you do make the changes, it's easy to repay the investment. So, I mean, something like this could cost you $250 a month, but could easily make you an extra $5,000 a month if properly used, because you know where you're losing money, right? So this is an example. Labor productivity and quality. You also need to know where, if there's any alerts. So if you're overtime or there's things that need to be taken in consideration right away. I mean, there's nothing better for, let's say, a manager, team leader to wake up in the morning, check his software, his data, and say, okay, geez, I have a couple alerts. So I'm waiting for a response from the client. I'm waiting for my subcontractor to come in, and geez, I don't even have a quote for this, and we're supposed to start this today. So this would show up all on that screen because there's communication and timelines for everyone, including the client. So if you're waiting on a response from the client, you can tell the client, basically, this can affect the productivity of it right from the start of the project. Say, listen, we're going to leave all the notes in there. All I got to do once a day is answer our questions, go in, and it's almost like a message board, right? You see where the builder, contractor, subcontractors, the client, they can all communicate there. There's a pretty good visual coming up. But ideally, when you get able to have all these in one spot, it just makes it easy for everyone to follow the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And to know where they are on the progress and updates. The third KPI is if there's any problems discovered in construction, it needs to be documented. And again, with the software, you can't see it here, but let's say you're doing something in the kitchen and the plug needs to be moved. The contractor could easily take a picture, just modify the image and just mark exactly where it needs to be changed, put it in the system, and then notify the other contractor or the builder that needs to get done. It just takes a couple minutes, but man, does it not save a lot of time, because then the contractor can take action right away, the builder can take action right away, and the client can be notified all at the same time.
Yeah, and if you're sending instructions, hey, take this plug, it was put in the wrong place, move it here.
Yeah.
If you're doing that manually, you tell one guy, oh, it's not my job, it's this guy's job, so I'll relay it. And then you're playing broken telephone.
Yeah.
Owner comes back, hey, it's not there, it's supposed to be there.
Still not done.
Now whose job? And then that's where it costs money. So at least this way it's documented and there's accountability. If it comes back and there's a problem, then we can say, well, hey, these were the instructions, they weren't clear. Mm-hmm. Now we know we do that too many times.
Yeah.
You got a problem.
Yeah. And I think that's what it offers. It's better communication, right? And better visuals. The fourth one is change orders. So I said it was huge. It's huge for a reason. There's a couple places where I dive in right away when I meet with a client. Is I take a look at where money's coming out, so inefficiencies, so where they're not as efficient with the crews or the way they use their systems and processes. The other second thing that I always try to check, because we can find a lot of money usually, is change orders. sometimes as insignificant as it can seem, changing, we were talking about a plug. Who's going to change that plug? But if it wastes everybody's time because it's not getting done, and that project's being delayed, that can represent thousands of dollars for a company for minor stuff. And the bigger the project, usually the worse it can go and the more it kind of piles up, right? So change orders are huge. I just wanted to give you some quick facts or some quick data on some research that was done. According to a study, 12,000 projects, the independent project analysis group found that more than 35% of all the construction projects are going to have some major changes. Well, what does that mean? It means that basically it's going to have an impact on the work, on the profits of the company, and just the overall efficiency. So basically 25% of all the projects slip by over 20%, and 25% of all the projects grow on the field. So that means you're going to have the clients saying, geez, I know I said I wanted that tub, but I actually want this shower now. And so how can we add this? And, or, is it a big deal if I change my mind on this and I add that? And that happens all the time, especially for home builders, but also we see that in landscaping and many other trades, right?
Yeah, those are some pretty strong stats, Frank. I'm wondering, from your opinion, is it a matter of just making sure that you have a system and a process in place so that these things, when they do come up, because it's inevitable, they will, according to those numbers, or just maybe factor that in from the beginning? You say, hey, typically our jobs are going to increase in value by 10, 15, 20% by the time we're done, or we know that 3 or 4 out of 10 customers are going to come back with some major change. What's kind of best practice there?
So there's many ways to address that. Some can be just in the contract to say any changes will be subject to change. But sometimes it slows down the job so much because you have to get it approved by the client, which we have technology now that works well, and you can send, just easily by email, a client can approve it right then and there, change order. But also what you can do is, if you have a budget range for certain things, or like you said, if you have a certain percentage allowed approved by the client based on certain changes, sometimes it can go a lot quicker,
right,
to not lose time. And sometimes you can leave it to the client to pick, say, listen, what do you prefer? You want the input on every decision, or on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis, certain percentage, certain amount you're comfortable with, that we can make decisions based on. Yeah, okay, it's a change order. If it's over $100 or $1,000, we let you know right away. Or do you want to approve everything? So they can pick and choose. I'm comfortable with a signature every time, and I like working with clients who are just efficient. So, and I have that on the contract, right? Saying that any delay might delay the job, and so they understand. But for bigger jobs, I definitely have that somewhere in the contract, just stating that we have to determine this before we even start the job. How do you want to go ahead with any changes? And so ultimately they make the decision, and you follow along. But the best way is just to get it approved. That's my opinion. But you can go with budgets too as well.
So.
Cool. Again, software, you can make it so it can be as easy as just having everything pre-entered into the system. So there's literally just drag and drop. So if you have a lot of change orders and it's always the same stuff, you could have, let's say, your different parts or materials that people want to upgrade, and you could just easily upgrade by saying, okay, it's no problem. Well, it's just this, this, and this. It's going to cost you $100 more, for example, and here it is. I'll just put it in the system. All you got to do is approve it with a click of a button, and it'll notify our team, and it'll also notify the person who's supposed to bring the material or the. So very easy, but you're tracking all these things, right? And at the end of the job, it shows up on the order sheet where you have all these different changes and what kind of work went into it. So very simple, but if you're not doing it, it could be your profit at the end of the year.
Right.
So RFIs and responses. So request for information, that's probably for bigger companies. So typically you could have a sheet of paper just like this one. You have the RFI issuer who wants information. Now, we see more emails and text, right? But it's not always efficient. So that's what I noticed with people growing their business. When they have to go back and say, geez, did I receive this in a text or was it by email? And then they just notice how much time they waste in trying to find information and answers and responses and keep people accountable. To me, it's way better if everyone's accountable because everyone has access to the information at all times, like on the cloud with software. It looks a little bit more like this. When it's with a software, you see the visual. So you have the client, the builder, and the partner, or the partners like subcontractors, and you have a conversation going on. Everyone's accountable. It's all on the same screen, and it basically tells you who's supposed to do what, who has done or not done their job, and what's next. Basically, you can go as precise as going in, putting all the numbers, the quote, the description, the comments of the client. Everything is there. The important part is just organizing all the communication and having it in one place. That's what software helps you to do. It's what technology allows you to do. So paper is great, but now with the technology, that's even better. I mean, I just look at the companies in the next 5-10 years. Those who do not start implementing technology, they're going to be left in the dust because people are getting so much more work done more easily. They're able to be more competitive too as a contractor because they're just more efficient, and so they can just do more work, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think also, Frank, the idea of leveraging software that is cloud based, so it's not just like on premise, meaning you have an application, but you got to be at the office to log into it, and then you get your documents, but you got to download them, create an email, upload it, attach it. These things, you pull out your phone or your iPad, you've got the app, everyone's on the same page in real time. I mean, that's the way to do it today. And all these CRMs and tools, they're so sophisticated now that it just...
Yeah. And you know what? I think everything we're talking about today, it's great because we want a better business. But ultimately, I could be wrong, but most business owners, what they're looking for is just more freedom or more happiness in what they're doing. So happiness could be money for one guy. It could be time for another guy. It could be
boats, RVs, motorcycles, ski-doos. There's a lot of toys, I'm sure, that we've got on our list of things we want, but yeah.
And so it's about that, because by doing this, you will get more of whatever you're looking for, because it really does provide all these things, right? So
in an ideal world, you got both the time and the toys, and you can enjoy it.
Exactly. And ultimately, hopefully, more freedom because it allows you to do more of what you want to do. By having these systems in place, what it also does, it just basically creates, it's easier to train people. So people coming in look at that and like, wow, everything is tracked. We know exactly where to put the information, where to find the information. It's easier, less frustrating for employees to work for you, for clients to hire you. And the more reasons you give a person to hire you or to come on board to work for you, the better it is for your business. So culture is huge, but it's also huge for marketing purposes, and usually just word of mouth, people saying, man, this company is efficient, productive. Not only that, but the employees seem to like their job there, right? And they're happy, and they're not frustrated because they're lacking information or tools. No, they're on board. They know what to do, when to do it. They know when to come in. They know what's going on.
And that's a huge turnoff, right? Like, I know in the software world, as a marketing company, we see who's in the space, and there's nothing worse than doing research on a company and then seeing on that first page of Google all the bad reviews that its employees are leaving the company. Imagine a homeowner who wants to hire, home improvement company, landscaping, whatever, and maybe it might not be apparent on that first page of Google, but even just on site, the employees are dragging their feet, showing up
right away.
You know it. You get that vibe. So great point there.
So again, it just comes up when you're able to see that information. Let's say you're using software and you have that overdue popping up. It just means, man, we needed this information. It's still not there, and on our timeline, we were supposed to have that answer by today, and so now it's overdue. And it's going to delay my next person coming in. you're able to take action much quicker. And I still remember as a contractor driving back home at night saying, I think I'm forgetting something. Like there's something that
And you're going through your messages on your phone.
You can't find it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you have that feeling inside, right? But when you have this, there's no guessing anymore.
Right.
And you don't have to rely on just the brain. There's a whole system, right? Safety and inspections. I guess the point why it's so important is because I don't know if you realize, but 6 cents of every dollar goes out for anything related to accidents in the workplace or anything that's safety related. So it's a huge amount when you think about how many of your own dollars a company might be affected. Maybe it's not affected for 5 years, but all of a sudden you have one person who's hurt on a job site and it could have been prevented, let's say. So all these little things, when you don't have the right permits and you guys are all on site, you need to start the job, or to know to have everything ready so that people can work safely on site. It takes planning. The bigger the project, the more there is to document. So having it all in one place, exact like a checklist, almost like we see right here, and being able to take pictures and document it so that for future purpose, say, listen, I remember doing a lot of lighting and underground stuff, and also piping, natural gas, all these things, and being able to take pictures and document them, and for the client to know exactly where to find that information if he needs it for another contractor coming in. And it's just a very easy, simple way to do it for your own tracking, but for the client as well. So, and closing out details. You want to leave that job, the client feeling really, really happy, feeling like they've made the best decision by hiring you. I mean, it's always great to be finished the job, but it's better when the client wants you to come back after, because it was just a smooth throughout, and the finish was just a smooth.
Right. Yeah. And not to come back to fix 10 things that weren't done.
Yeah. I mean,
to come back and start a new project. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure contractors would agree that sometimes you do awesome work, and at the end, for some reason, something doesn't go as well, and then all the client remembers is that one little thing, right? We were talking about, let's say, flooring. One of your guys leaves too quickly or puts his tools and it scratches, and then all they can see is that one board that needs to be fixed, and then you can't get to it fast enough, and then it's one of these things where if you can finish strong, it will bring you not only more profit, but more business.
Yeah.
Okay. It's all part of efficiencies. So closing out, you have to close out strong with the project, obviously, with the client. So making a checklist, making sure that you go through the project with the client, right? Making sure he's satisfied. The subcontractors, making sure they've all done what they have to do. Because if you don't do it, the client will start picking at every little thing that he can find, especially if there's been any issues, right? Yeah. Organizational details, the paperwork, all this stuff. This is where you also take a look at the estimated time on the job versus the actual time on a job, right? You do that throughout the project, but here you start looking at these numbers. You also do a risk assessment and final report. So is there things that we should keep in consideration? Let's say you've installed a certain type of material and there's a warranty on that and it's already starting to lose its color. Okay, well, maybe it's something we should consider. It's in the notes. And the manufacturer has been notified. We've taken pictures, and we're going to reassess in a year. All these little things that you have to keep track, at least it's in one place. And then your whole team is at the end of each project, and how many companies do this? It's very rare that I meet companies that actually take the time to do this, but the ones who do just keep getting better. So getting with the team and saying, team, this was a great project.
Like a debrief kind of.
Debrief. Right. And if you are ready for software, then yes, there's so many different type of software that you can invest in. What I do is, or recommend, is do your research. It's not for everyone. There's options that some have that you don't need, or maybe that you need. And so you want to take a look at how easy is it to use that software. Are they offering any pilot programs to get your employees on board? How is it easy to implement? all these little things. Is there proper training? The training is huge. So if some of the softwares don't offer training or they don't have the videos that easily go through, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, Frank, looking at this screen here, you know, I mean, these are great when you get these sort of review sites that will go and pin up two softwares against each other. So that's easy. You just Google, for example, you know, you mentioned co-constructing here. You got that one, you know, versus VS, another one. And you'll see very often on G2 Crowd or any of these other websites, they'll pin them up and you'll get a list side by side where they're doing a comparison for you. You got to be careful. Some of those at times are paid endorsements, so you got to question. But ultimately, go to the websites, like you said, do your due diligence, do your research, see what other people are saying about it. You look at nice, fancy, flashy marketing. Sometimes you get wowed by a product, but what are its customers? What are the customers saying? You know, so that's
a big, huge thing that I usually recommend my clients to do is they're not used to doing this for when you're buying, let's say, software. Is do a request for proposal. Ask them to do a proposal to show you exactly what you're getting, to really go into detail. Like this should be an hour session where they would be going over basically winning you on board to make you, to convince you basically that it's going to be easy, it's going to be the smart move, and it is for you. If you're not able to do that, or if you're not able to invest at least an hour in 3 or 4 different software to learn more about it, then you probably shouldn't tackle that right away. But if you have that time and you take about an hour and you learn about 3 or 4 different types of products out there, this could be the best move for your company, for your own freedom and your happiness. So I'm thinking, you know, it's probably worth the investment of time. But to request it, most people just take a look at it online. They don't even request.
Yeah, and they watch a quick 2-minute video.
A 2-minute video.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's very much like hiring an employee, right? You do your screening, you'd interview them, you'd ask them why you and not someone else, right?
Yeah.
In the software world, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, cool.
So I definitely recommend that. But
awesome. Well, Frank, I want to thank you for being here today. It was nice to have you in studio. This was a great presentation. 7 really strong key points that I think people can, you know, immediately audit, right? At the very least, would you say that's step 1?
It's actionable today. You know, whether you do it on paper or software, at least you're tracking.
Right. Check it out. And I like the whole idea of just benchmarking, right? So the idea of, you know how long things should take, measure how long it's taking you, and then the post-project completion, you know, have a debrief with your team. And I like that also because ideas come up and they're not coming from you necessarily all the time. And it's a way to get people, well, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Sometimes there's great feedback coming your way. And then when it gets implemented, people are more inclined to want to act on it because it's coming from them.
Yeah.
You know? So, Frank, thanks for being here, my
Appreciate
friend.
it, Mark.
Great session.
Thank you so much.